A millionaire paid $5,000 for his secretary to accompany him to a prom. What she did shocked everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Ethan Caldwell has built his life on numbers that always add up and decisions that never wobble. A self-made millionaire whose days are measured in meetings, contracts, and clean wins. The kind of man who believes control is the same thing as security. And tonight control is exactly what he needs as he stands alone in his glass-walled office after hours, the city glowing below like a promise he already kept. Because tomorrow night he must attend a prom-like charity gala thrown by one of the city's most influential families, a public event filled with cameras, donors, and old expectations he has learned to tolerate but never enjoy. And there is one problem he cannot ignore. He needs a date, not for romance, not for appearances alone, but to silence a rumor that has begun to ripple through his board and the press. Whispers that he is impossible, unapproachable, and unfit to represent the softer face of his brand. And Ethan does not argue with whispers. He neutralizes them. So when his assistant mentions that his executive secretary Lily Harper is still at her desk finishing reports, a practical solution forms in his mind, precise and transactional, and he walks down the quiet hallway with the same calm he uses to close deals, finding Lily in the soft hum of office lights, her blazer folded over her chair, her pen moving fast because she knows time is expensive even when no one is watching. And when he clears his throat, she looks up, surprised but professional, unaware that her evening is about to tilt, because Ethan does not circle the point or soften the edges. He never has. He tells her there is an event tomorrow night, that he needs a companion, that discretion is required, and that he is willing to pay $5,000 for one evening of her time to accompany him. Nothing more, nothing personal, just presence, posture, and a smile when needed. And the number hangs in the air between them like a figure on a spreadsheet that suddenly feels too large to ignore, because Lily's first instinct is to refuse, not out loud but in the tightening of her jaw, because she has worked too hard to be seen as capable and serious. Yet the number presses against the quiet facts of her life, the rent due in 2 weeks, the student loans that never seem to shrink, the medical bills she keeps folded in a drawer she pretends not to open, and Ethan watches her carefully, mistaking her silence for calculation when it is really pride wrestling with reality. And he clarifies the boundaries with the same tone he uses in negotiations. One night only. No expectations beyond the event. No future implications. And absolute professionalism. And Lily finally speaks, asking if he is serious, and he nods, because for him this is simple. Money exchanged for a role. A clean solution. But for Lily it feels like standing at the edge of something she cannot fully name, because being chosen for convenience is not the same as being chosen at all, and yet she agrees on one condition, that she will not be treated as an accessory or corrected in front of others, that she will represent herself with dignity, and Ethan accepts without hesitation, because he believes dignity is a given when the price is right. And as he turns to leave, already satisfied the problem is solved, Lily sits very still, wondering how one evening can cost so much and whether it might cost more than money. And this is the moment everything begins, though neither of them understands it yet. So now, let's return to our main character. Lily Harper does not sleep much that night, not because she is excited, but because her mind keeps circling the same question she has asked herself for years: how much dignity costs when life keeps raising the price? And as the city quiets outside her apartment window, she sits at her small kitchen table with unpaid envelopes spread like evidence. The rent notice she has memorized down to the due date. The student loan statement that never seems to move no matter how carefully she budgets. And the medical bill from her mother's last appointment folded smaller than the rest, because she hates how real it feels when it is fully opened. And she reminds herself that she did not accept the money yet, not officially. She only agreed in principle. But the truth presses in anyway. $5,000 would erase the panic that has lived in her chest for months. It would buy time, breathing room. the rare luxury of not calculating every grocery trip down to the last dollar. And still she stares at her reflection in the dark window and barely recognizes the woman looking back, because she has always believed she would earn her way forward through competence and patience, not by standing beside someone powerful and being quietly counted as part of his image. And yet she also knows how the world works, how often the doors that open fastest are not the ones marked merit but convenience. And the thought leaves a bitter taste she cannot quite swallow. The next morning comes too quickly, sunlight cutting across her desk as Lily arrives early, as she always does, reviewing schedules and answering emails with the same calm efficiency that made her indispensable long before anyone learned her name. And when Ethan Caldwell steps out of the elevator, polished and precise as ever, she feels the weight of last night settle between them. Unspoken but present, he asks if she has given more thought to the arrangement. His voice even, respectful, businesslike, and Lily nods, telling him she will do it, clearly and without hesitation. But she repeats her condition, that she will not be treated as something rented or corrected in public, that she will attend as herself, and Ethan agrees again, almost distracted, already moving on to logistics, attire, timing, the route they will take to avoid the press. And Lily listens, nodding, taking notes, because professionalism is her armor, even when her hands tremble just slightly beneath the desk. As the day unfolds, she finds herself noticing things she usually ignores, the way colleagues glance at her when Ethan stops by her desk more often than usual, the way her phone lights up with a reminder from her landlord, the way a single choice can pull every part of her life into sharper focus. At lunch she sits alone in the break room, pushing food around the plate because appetite feels like a luxury, thinking about her mother's voice on the phone the night before, gentle and apologetic, asking if Lily is taking care of herself. And Lily had said yes, because that is what daughters say when they do not want to worry the people who already feel like a burden. By late afternoon, Ethan's assistant confirms the details, the dress code formal. The event held at a restored downtown ballroom, with marble floors and chandeliers meant to impress donors and remind them where power still lives. And Lily feels the quiet fear she has not named until now, that she will be seen and judged before she ever speaks, that the room will decide who she is based on who she arrives with. But beneath that fear is something steadier, a line she will not cross, because the money solves problems, but it does not get to rewrite who she is. And as she shuts down her computer at the end of the day, Lily makes herself one promise, that no matter how this night unfolds, she will walk into it with her head up, knowing exactly why she said yes, and exactly what parts of herself are not for sale. Lily arrives at Ethan Caldwell's office the following afternoon with a quiet resolve that surprises even her, because somewhere between last night's sleepless hours and this moment, the choice has settled into something solid. And when Ethan gestures for her to sit, sliding a thin folder across the desk, she does not flinch. The folder is simple, clean, no dramatic language, just terms, time, expectations. The kind of document meant to make everything feel orderly and contained. And Ethan explains it the same way he explains everything, calmly, efficiently, as if clarity alone can remove all discomfort. One evening, arrival together, departure together, no personal disclosures unless asked directly, no future references once the night is over. And Lily listens carefully, not because she is afraid to object, but because she wants to understand exactly what she is agreeing to. And when he finishes, she takes a breath and asks her questions, not emotional ones, but practical ones. How she should be introduced, whether she is expected to answer questions about her background, whether she is allowed to step away if she feels uncomfortable. And Ethan answers without hesitation, telling her she will be introduced simply by name, that she does not owe anyone an explanation beyond what she chooses to give, and that if she signals she needs space, he will respect it. And for the first time since this began, something in his tone shifts, not warmth, but consideration. And Lily notices, because she is good at noticing what others miss. She then adds her condition formally, that she will not lie if directly asked a question about herself, that she will not pretend to be something she is not, and that if she feels disrespected, she reserves the right to leave, money or no money. And Ethan studies her for a moment, as if recalculating, then nods, agreeing, because this is still, in his mind, a controlled variable, and he believes he can account for it. The contract is signed, not with ceremony, but with quiet finality, and when Lily hands the pen back, she feels the strange mix of relief and weight that comes with commitment. Later that day, they review logistics, the event schedule, the route, the expected arrival time, and then Ethan pauses, asking if she has something appropriate to wear. The question is neutral, but Lily hears the implication anyway, and she answers honestly, telling him she owns one formal dress from a college fundraiser years ago, simple, black, well cared for, and Ethan nods, then surprises her by saying it will be fine, that the event is not about spectacle, it is about presence. And Lily almost smiles, because she knows how untrue that is, but appreciates the effort all the same. They meet briefly with a stylist recommended by the event coordinator, not for transformation, but refinement, hair smoothed, makeup kept light, nothing exaggerated, and Lily insists on it. She wants to look like herself, not a version designed to impress strangers, and when she sees her reflection later, she recognizes the woman staring back, composed, alert, steady, not borrowed confidence, but practiced resilience. The day moves forward, emails answered, meetings concluded, and as evening approaches, Ethan's driver waits downstairs, and Lily gathers her bag, feeling the familiar tightening in her chest that comes before stepping into an unfamiliar room. And when she joins Ethan in the lobby, dressed simply but with intention, he notices, not with the casual appraisal he gives most things, but with a brief pause that tells her she has shifted his expectations, and they exchange a few words, nothing personal, just timing, just steps. And as the car pulls into traffic, Lily looks out the window, grounding herself in the passing streets, reminding herself why she is here and what she will not give away, because tonight is not about pretending to belong. It is about standing where she is and choosing how she will be seen. Lily feels the car slow as it approaches the venue, the restored ballroom rising into view with its wide stone steps and warm lights spilling through tall windows, and she straightens instinctively, smoothing her dress not because she doubts it, but because ritual steadies her. And when the driver opens the door, Ethan steps out first, offering his arm with practiced ease, a gesture meant for cameras and onlookers, and Lily hesitates only a second before taking it, reminding herself that posture does not equal surrender. Inside, the air hums with conversation and soft music, the kind designed to sound effortless, and Lily is immediately aware of the contrast. Polished shoes on marble floors, tailored suits, gowns that whisper when people move, and she senses the quiet recalibration that happens when a new figure enters a room. Eyes flicker, curiosity sharpens, assumptions begin forming before a word is spoken. Ethan navigates with calm precision, greeting donors and hosts by name, his voice measured, confident, and Lily keeps pace beside him, matching his rhythm without mimicking it, answering polite questions with simple clarity. Yes, she works with Ethan. Yes, she enjoys her work. No, she does not elaborate beyond that. And to her surprise, she finds the more she speaks plainly, the less room there is for others to fill in stories for her. They stop near a group of executives and their spouses, and Lily feels the familiar flicker of being assessed, not openly, but subtly, through glances that linger a second too long. And she recognizes the pattern from a lifetime of navigating rooms she was not expected to belong in. And she does what she has always done. She listens, she responds thoughtfully, she refuses to shrink. As the evening unfolds, Ethan begins to notice the effect she has, how conversations shift when she speaks, how people lean in rather than look past her, how she does not compete for attention, yet somehow commands it, and this unsettles him, slightly because he had expected to manage the evening, to guide it like any other engagement, but Lily moves through it with a quiet autonomy that cannot be directed. During a brief pause near the balcony, Ethan asks if she is all right, his tone neutral, but his eyes searching, and she answers honestly, telling him it is overwhelming but manageable, that she appreciates the check-in, and the simplicity of her response disarms him, because he realizes he rarely asks without expecting a specific answer. The music shifts, signaling the formal portion of the evening will begin soon, and the host calls guests toward the center of the room, where speeches and acknowledgments will follow, and Lily feels the tension rise, not fear, but anticipation, because she knows this is where things become visible, where words carry weight. And as they take their seats, she notices a woman nearby whisper something to her companion while glancing in Lily's direction. And although she cannot hear the words, the tone is familiar enough to interpret. And Lily exhales slowly, grounding herself, reminding herself that she does not owe anyone performance beyond respect. Ethan leans slightly toward her, murmuring that if she needs to step away at any point, she should say so, and Lily nods, grateful not for the offer itself but for the fact that he means it. The lights dim slightly, the host steps forward, and the room quiets. And Lily sits with her shoulders back, her hands steady in her lap, aware that whatever happens next will test more than appearances, it will test intention, and she is ready, not because she feels powerful, but because she knows exactly who she is. The host begins speaking, thanking donors and highlighting the evening's purpose. And as applause rises and falls in polite waves, Lily feels the room settle into its familiar rhythm of influence and recognition. Names spoken with practiced admiration, achievements framed as inevitabilities rather than choices. And she listens closely, not out of awe but awareness, because rooms like this often reveal more in the pauses than in the praise. When the host invites a brief acknowledgement from Ethan for his recent contribution to a scholarship initiative, a murmur moves through the crowd, and Ethan stands, delivering his remarks with his usual restraint, concise and focused on impact, not ego, and Lily watches the audience respond, nods of approval, measured claps, the image holding as intended, until the moment shifts. A woman seated 2 rows ahead turns slightly and addresses Lily directly with a smile that is too practiced to be kind, asking lightly where she studied, her tone carrying an assumption that education is the most acceptable proof of worth. And Lily meets her gaze calmly, answering honestly that she attended a state university and worked full-time to pay for it. And the woman's smile tightens just enough to signal judgment. Another voice joins in, someone else asking how long Lily has known Ethan, whether this evening is a celebration or something more personal. And Lily senses the quiet curiosity sharpen into something evaluative, as if her presence must be categorized before it can be accepted. And she glances at Ethan, who is still standing, finishing his remarks, unaware of the small test unfolding beside him. And Lily feels the weight of her choice, to deflect, to soften, to perform gratitude for attention she did not ask for, or to answer plainly and risk discomfort. And she chooses the latter, because dignity has become her anchor tonight. She smiles politely, and says she works as Ethan's secretary, that she accepted the invitation as a professional courtesy, and that she is proud of the work she does, because it matters to her. The words land quietly but firmly, and the surrounding listeners pause, not because the statement is shocking, but because it does not fit the script they expected. There is a brief silence. Then someone clears their throat. Conversation resumes, but the tone has shifted, and Ethan notices, returning to his seat with a glance toward Lily that carries a question. She meets it with a small nod, signaling she is fine, but he senses something else, a subtle recalibration in the room. The host announces a dance to follow, couples rising, music swelling, and Ethan offers his hand, hesitating just long enough to make it clear the choice is hers, and Lily accepts, stepping onto the floor with steady grace, aware of eyes tracking them, not with admiration now, but curiosity sharpened by surprise. And as they move, not performing intimacy, but sharing space, Lily feels the strange calm that comes when one stops bracing for judgment and simply exists. And Ethan feels something unfamiliar as well, the realization that control does not come from scripting outcomes, but from trusting the people you stand beside. The music ends, applause follows, and as they return to their seats, the woman from earlier approaches again, this time with a different expression, asking Lily about her work, genuinely this time. And Lily answers, describing the satisfaction of solving problems, of being reliable, of building something piece by piece. And Ethan listens, hearing her story framed not as justification but as truth. And in that moment he understands that the night is no longer unfolding according to plan, because Lily has shifted the room without raising her voice, without asking permission, simply by refusing to be smaller than she is. And the realization unsettles him, not with fear, but with clarity, because whatever happens next will no longer be something he can purchase or predict. The next moment arrives quietly, disguised as routine, when the host invites guests to share brief reflections on why they support the cause, and a microphone is passed through the room, stopping unexpectedly in front of Lily, someone suggesting with a light laugh that since she has become the evening's quiet surprise, perhaps she would like to say a few words, and the suggestion draws attention fast, heads turning, interest sharpening, and Lily feels the room tighten around her, not hostile, just curious, waiting to see what role she will play now that she has been noticed. She looks at the microphone, then at Ethan, who is already starting to shake his head, prepared to decline on her behalf, to steer things back to safety. But Lily places her hand lightly on his arm, a small gesture that stills him, and she stands, not hurried, not hesitant, and takes the microphone. Her heartbeat steady because the decision has already been made. She thanks the host briefly, then pauses, allowing the silence to stretch just enough that people lean in. And she begins by saying she did not expect to speak tonight, that she came as a guest, invited to accompany Ethan for the evening, and a ripple moves through the crowd, interest sharpening into surprise, and she continues, explaining that she was offered money to be there, not as an insult, but as an arrangement. One she agreed to because life is expensive and choices are rarely simple, and the room goes still, not uncomfortable, yet, but alert, because this is not how these moments usually unfold. Lily does not accuse or dramatize. She speaks plainly, saying she accepted because she needed the money, but she also accepted because she believed she could show up without pretending to be someone else. She says that too often people assume worth comes from proximity to power, from titles or appearances, and that she has spent her life proving otherwise. Her voice does not rise, but it carries, and she feels the shift as people stop evaluating and start listening. She then says something that causes a visible stir, that she will not be accepting the payment offered for tonight, because while money can ease fear, it should never be the reason someone feels permitted to speak or stand in a room. And she places the envelope she had been given earlier on the table beside her, untouched, a simple act that lands harder than any accusation. Gasps ripple softly, someone whispers. Another person straightens in their chair, and Lily finishes by thanking those who support the cause, not for recognition, but because opportunity changes lives in ways that cannot be predicted or purchased. And she returns the microphone, her hands steady, her expression calm, as if she has simply told the truth and nothing more. The room erupts into applause, not the polite kind, but something fuller, louder, layered with surprise and respect. Ethan remains seated, stunned, because in one quiet decision Lily has broken every rule of the arrangement and elevated the evening beyond anything he planned. He stands as well, instinctively, not to reclaim control, but because he recognizes that the moment demands acknowledgement, and he does not speak. He simply places his hand over his heart in a gesture of respect, letting the applause continue. And in that instant he understands what has shocked everyone is not Lily's refusal of money, but her refusal to be owned by the terms of the night. And as the noise swells and slowly fades, Lily sits back down, her breath finally catching up with her, aware that nothing will be the same after this, because some lines once crossed cannot be redrawn, and some truths, once spoken aloud, cannot be taken back. The applause fades slowly, leaving behind a charged quiet that feels heavier than the noise before it, and Lily becomes acutely aware of her own breathing as people begin to move again, conversations restarting in low tones, eyes following her with a different kind of attention, and Ethan turns toward her, his expression unreadable, not angry, not impressed, simply unsettled, and he asks if they can step outside for a moment, his voice controlled but no longer distant, and Lily agrees, grateful for air. They walk through a side corridor and onto the balcony overlooking the city, the night cool and steady, a contrast to the heat of the room they just left, and for a few seconds neither of them speaks. Because there are moments when words feel inadequate until silence does its work. Ethan finally breaks it, saying he did not expect that she went far beyond what they discussed, and Lily meets his gaze calmly, telling him she knows, that she understood the risk, and that she did not do it to embarrass him. She did it because it was the truth, and Ethan exhales, running a hand through his hair, admitting that he felt exposed. not by the crowd, but by how clearly she saw through the arrangement, how easily she stepped outside it while he remained bound by it. And Lily listens, not defensive, not apologetic, because she has already accepted the consequences of her choice. She tells him she never meant to undermine his intentions, but she could not allow the night to reduce her to a transaction, that accepting the money would have followed her long after the evening ended, and Ethan nods slowly, understanding more than he expected to. And yet there is tension, because understanding does not erase discomfort. He tells her that public moments have weight, that investors and partners notice unpredictability, and Lily responds quietly that unpredictability is often just honesty appearing in places where control is expected, and the words land between them, not as an argument, but as a line drawn. Ethan then says something that surprises her, that he realizes now how little he questioned the power he assumed came with money, how natural it felt to offer payment instead of vulnerability, and that her refusal forced him to confront that. Lily softens slightly, not because she feels vindicated, but because she hears sincerity. She tells him she does not regret coming, but she does regret that the arrangement ever made either of them believe it defined the night. And for a moment they stand there, two people stripped of roles, no longer employer and employee, no longer benefactor and guest, just individuals facing the aftermath of a shared choice. Inside the ballroom, a coordinator peeks out, reminding them that the evening is not yet over, that guests are asking for Ethan, and Ethan turns back to Lily, telling her he understands if she wants to leave, that he will ensure she gets home safely, and Lily considers it the easy exit, the clean break, but she shakes her head, saying she will return briefly, not to perform, but to close the evening on her terms, and Ethan respects that, offering to walk beside her, not ahead, not guiding, and they re-enter together, the room sensing the shift immediately, conversations pausing again, and Lily feels the familiar pressure return, but it no longer intimidates her, because she has already spoken the hardest truth. As they move through the crowd, a few people approach Lily directly, thanking her, sharing brief stories of their own compromises, and she listens, responding with kindness but not self-importance. Ethan observes all of this, the way influence moves differently when it is not forced, and he realizes that the night has altered something fundamental, not just his image, but his understanding of leadership. And when the time comes to leave, Lily gathers her things, thanking the host politely, and as they step into the car once more, the city lights passing by in silence. Both of them know the arrangement is over, but the reckoning has only begun. The days after the gala unfold with a strange quiet that feels louder than the night itself, and Lily returns to her routine with a steadiness that surprises her coworkers, answering emails, organizing schedules, moving through familiar tasks as if nothing has shifted, though internally everything feels recalibrated, because once you speak a truth publicly, it follows you into private spaces, and she senses it in the way people look at her now, not with suspicion, but with a new attentiveness, as if they are waiting to see who she will be next. Ethan, meanwhile, finds his office less comfortable than before, the glass walls reflecting a man who thought he understood leverage and influence, only to realize how narrow that understanding had been. Meetings blur together, but Lily's words echo unexpectedly, not accusatory, just precise, and when a senior partner compliments him on the evening, calling it bold and refreshing, Ethan does not take credit, he corrects them, saying the moment belonged to someone else. And that acknowledgement unsettles him as much as it clarifies his intent, because for the first time he feels compelled not to manage perception, but to realign action. 2 days later he asks Lily to meet him after work, not in his office, but in a quiet coffee shop near the building, a neutral space. And Lily agrees cautiously, arriving on time, choosing a table by the window. When Ethan arrives, he does not open with business. He thanks her, not vaguely, but specifically, for her honesty, for her courage, and for revealing something he had overlooked in himself. And Lily listens, her posture relaxed but guarded, because gratitude can sometimes disguise expectation. Ethan continues, telling her he has been thinking about the scholarship initiative mentioned at the gala, that he wants to restructure it, not as a headline gesture, but as a long-term commitment with real access and mentorship. And then he surprises her by asking if she would be willing to help design it. not as his secretary, but as an equal contributor, with authority and credit. Lily does not answer immediately, because this is the kind of offer that sounds generous but carries weight. She asks what changed, and Ethan answers honestly, saying he realized that leadership without accountability becomes performance, and that he wants to build something that reflects values rather than optics. Lily considers this carefully, then says she will think about it, but she is clear that her participation will not come from obligation or gratitude. It will come from belief in the work, and Ethan accepts that boundary without negotiation. Later that evening, Lily returns home and calls her mother, telling her about the gala, about the speech, about refusing the money, and her mother listens quietly, then says she is proud of her, not for the attention, but for choosing herself, and Lily feels the weight she has carried loosen just slightly. The next week brings changes, small at first, then more visible. Ethan publicly announces the restructured initiative, crediting Lily Harper by name as a consultant, not an assistant, and the office hums with reaction, some surprised, some inspired, some skeptical, but Lily moves through it with calm focus, attending meetings where her voice is invited rather than overlooked. And Ethan watches the shift unfold, understanding now that influence shared multiplies rather than diminishes. One afternoon he hands Lily a check, not for the gala, but as compensation for her new role, clearly outlined, fairly structured, and Lily accepts this one, because it aligns with her work, not her silence. And as they stand there, not as employer and employee but collaborators, Ethan says something quietly, that he no longer wants to define their connection through contracts alone, that he respects her too much for that. Lily meets his gaze, feeling the truth of the moment without rushing to name it, and she responds that respect is a beginning, not a conclusion, and that if anything else is to exist between them, it must grow without leverage or expectation. Ethan agrees, because for the first time he understands that some things gain value only when nothing is owed. And as they return to their work, the city moving steadily outside the windows, both of them sense that what began as a transaction has transformed into a choice, one neither of them takes lightly. Time moves forward in a way that feels both ordinary and newly charged, and weeks pass as the initiative Lily helped design begins to take shape, applications arriving from students who never imagined someone like them would be seen, and Lily pours herself into the work with the same focus she once reserved for keeping other people's lives running smoothly. Except now the work reflects her values, not just her competence. And Ethan watches this transformation with a kind of quiet awe, because he recognizes that what he once considered generosity was often distance, and what Lily practices effortlessly is presence. One late afternoon they find themselves alone in the conference room after a long meeting, sunlight stretching across the table, the city muted beyond the glass, and Ethan hesitates before speaking, not because he is unsure of what he feels, but because he is learning that timing matters when honesty is at stake. He tells Lily that the night of the gala changed the direction of his life more than any business decision ever has, that for the first time he questioned not how much he could offer, but who he was becoming when everything could be bought. Lily listens, her expression open but grounded, and he continues, saying he does not want to define what exists between them with promises he cannot earn, but he knows he wants to choose her without contracts, without payment, without expectation of return, and Lily feels the weight of his words not as pressure but as an invitation. She tells him she has spent her life protecting her independence because it was the only thing no one could take, and that what she needs is not assurance of security, but assurance of respect that does not waver when circumstances change. Ethan nods, understanding this is not a negotiation but a truth, and he says simply that he is willing to learn how to stand beside her, not in front of her, not above her. And Lily considers this, not rushing the moment, because trust grows best when it is not forced into shape. She finally tells him that she does not know where this will lead, but she knows she wants to find out without disguises, without roles, and Ethan smiles, not triumphant, but relieved, because uncertainty no longer feels like a threat. Months later the initiative celebrates its first group of recipients, a modest event held in a community center rather than a ballroom, and Lily watches students share their stories, voices steady with hope, and Ethan stands quietly beside her, content to listen, to support, to learn. Afterward, as the room empties, Lily steps outside for air, and Ethan follows, the evening calm, and he takes out something small from his pocket, not a ring, not a symbol meant to impress, but a folded note, and he tells her it is. Not a promise, just a question written after many drafts, and Lily opens it to read a simple sentence asking if she would continue building a life with him one honest day at a time. No guarantees, just choice, and Lily feels a smile rise, because the question carries no weight except sincerity. She answers yes, not loudly, not dramatically, but with certainty, and in that moment the past arrangement dissolves completely, replaced by something earned, and as they walk back inside together, Lily realizes the most shocking thing was never what she did on that stage, but what she refused to become, and Ethan understands that the most valuable thing he ever gained was not admiration, but partnership, and neither of them needs to say more, because some endings feel like beginnings only when they are chosen freely.